don't work for someone. You don't report to an office. You don't check in with coworkers, because it's just you. And for a while, you felt free. But freedom without a system? That's just another word for stuck. You set goals. Then you don't reach them. You stay busy. Yet your pipeline doesn't grow. You meet people, only to never hear from them again. And the worst part? It's only getting worse. You want things to improve, and they can, but it starts with you. MPN is an online accountability group for financial advisors, mortgage brokers, real estate professionals, insurance agents, coaches, and consultants. People who know their profession, but need structure to stay consistent. Every day, 6 disciplines to complete. Every week, 4 steps to follow. Every month, fellow professionals see your commitment. And the outcome? You build yourself. You build your business. You build your network. MPN, where information meets implementation. Learn more at mypersonalnetwork.org.
What would you do with an extra hour in your day? You might spend it outside or on something that brings you joy. Hi, I'm Michael O'Brien, and I have a special app called Pause, Breathe, Reflect. And it can actually help you find that extra hour by reducing something I call your scroll tax. And it's absolutely free to download in Apple's App Store and in Google Play. So I hope you'll check it out and find that extra hour in your day.
Well, welcome everybody back to Mindful Mondays. Today here we are joined by a man whose life was changed forever in a single moment, and who turned that experience into a mission and helping others with great purpose, resilience, and peace. After a near-fatal cycling accident he calls the last bad day, Michael O'Brien discovered the transformative power of mindfulness and has dedicated his life to helping others navigate stress, adversity, and life's challenges through the simple practice of pausing, breathing, and reflecting. He's an executive coach, a meditation teacher, endurance athlete, and creator of the Pause, Breathe, Reflect meditation app. Michael inspires people around the world to find clarity and calm amidst the life's chaos. So please help me in welcoming and joining us, Michael. So Michael, thank you for joining us today.
Well, Laura, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a wonderful conversation. So again, thanks for having me.
Yes, and we'll have to tell people too, kind of how we met, because we're going to get into that too. But that app is such a wonderful thing. I love tools like that, and I love how you say help you find that extra hour back, because some people feel like they don't even have 5 minutes, let alone an hour. And everybody gets caught up in that whole, I call it a rat race, but so busy, go that, yeah, it's very important. And the fact that it's free is incredible that you've done that for people.
Well, it was one of those conversations I would have with some of the executives I would coach, but just friends. Sometimes I would hear from family members, like when you have such a long to-do list, he's like, I don't have enough time in the day to get all my stuff done. I wish I had an extra hour. And then that extra hour becomes like, I wish I had an extra day in the week. So then I started asking people, okay, so let's say you have an extra hour every day. Well, what would you actually spend it on? Would you do just more work? For some people, the answer is yes. But what I found by asking close to, I think, around 5,000 people over the years, is that most people would spend it on their health. Because, as you know, Laura, like we tend to put our own health on the back burner. Like we want to make sure everyone else is okay and healthy. And we put that on the back burner. Or they would spend it with family and friends, or they might spend it outside. And so we got working on a feature within the app. The app originally was designed to be a meditation app with like 700 different meditations, but we have a feature that allows us to interrupt the habitual pattern that we all have. When we get bored, we grab our phones, and we usually go to the same old websites. And so what it does through something called microdose EQ, it disrupts that automatic pattern. And then it gives people just enough of a moment to think, hey, do I need to get onto TikTok? Do I need to get onto Facebook? Maybe I don't. So people have found that they found an extra hour a day by just scrolling less on their phone.
Yeah, that's true. You can. It's so easy to get caught up in that. I've done that every now and then because I love the cute videos. I don't do it much, but I mean, I'm on there. I post stuff, but that's like I tell people. I'm like, I'm not on there all the time. So unless you happen to be there when I'm checking a feed, if you want me to see something, tag me on it because
Yes.
otherwise it's not going to
Yes.
necessarily come up and say, "Woo, hey, I'm here." And sometimes you wind up missing things, but like you, I've learned that balance and I need my own I need my own downtime and I can't get
Yeah.
caught up with that stuff all the time.
No, it's the joy of missing out. We hear the FOMO, fear of
Almost.
missing out, like the joy of missing out. Like there's just some stuff online that if I don't see, my life is going to be a-okay. So I think with all this, like whether it be social media or our phones, some of it can be essential and needed. Like with our phones, it's how we navigate and get around with maps and stuff like that. But even too much of a good thing can sometimes be a not so good thing. And so we just have to find a way to use our technology that benefits us. And so instead of like what a lot of people have shared with me is like, I feel like my phone is using me and I'm not using my phone. And I'm like, oh yeah, that is so true. That's such a good way of looking at it. And so through the app, as you mentioned, it's all free. People can start learning how to use their phone and not have their phone sort of dictate their life.
Yeah, yeah. But before we unpack that even more, if we could back up, because you often refer to that near fatal cycling accident as your last bad day. So is it okay? Can you take us back to that moment
Yeah.
and tell us what shifted within you that caused you to view such a traumatic event as a turning point rather than a tragedy?
Yeah, so it started off a little rough. It was a
I'd imagine.
it was a hard day. So I was out in New Mexico, north of Albuquerque and south of Santa Fe. Back in my corporate days, we were out there for a team offsite meeting. It was a Monday through Friday thing, and we had a half day to do whatever, like you know, fancy spa, go golfing, go shopping. And I've been an avid cyclist really my whole life, and I wanted to ride my bike in New Mexico. I still had this goal of riding my bike in all 50 states. And so at that point in time, New Mexico had not been conquered. It hasn't no check by New Mexico. So I brought my bike out, and that morning of July 11th, I got hit by an SUV who was coming into the hotel property, traveling around 40 miles an hour. He had crossed the center line of the road, coming around a bend, and there I was.
Wow.
And it was one of those like it happened so fast, but then again there was like that slow motion feeling, like when you're about to fall or something. And I just could not. I didn't have time to avoid him, and I went right into his grill of his truck, broke through the windshield. Of course, that knocked me unconscious. I regained my consciousness, and I learned that they were going to medevac me, helicopter me to Albuquerque because my injuries were so bad that I wouldn't survive an ambulance ride to Albuquerque. So the airlift flight was about 19 minutes. And I just remember like promising, like if I live, because I knew that was in question based on just the whole energy of the
Yeah, a
EMS.
life flight coming to get you.
Yeah, there was like, I'm like, and you could just feel the worry. Like I was perfectly still. I was like they put me on a backboard. They like tied me up. So it wasn't like I was looking around. Like I was in the worst pain I've ever had in my life. But I knew like, I'm like, this is not how it's supposed to end, right? I just was, and I was starting to bargain with anyone who listened to me. I said, hey, listen, if I live, I promise I will stop chasing my happiness, because I was a big chasing my happiness striver kind of guy back then. And I was just hoping someone would listen. So, and then they flew me to Albuquerque, and my first surgery took about 13 hours. And my daughters at the time were 3.5 years old and 7 months old. So this whole like one moment like flipped our whole lives
Oh,
upside
yeah.
down.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed a ton of blood product, plasma, donated blood to save my life. Then I went to the ICU for several days. I still had more surgeries in front of me, and a little fast forwarding. I like when they told me about the extent of like my injuries and how my life was going to be their prediction. They also told me the driver had a revoked license. So then I got really bitter. I was like, this wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to be driving. This is so unfair. And I was in that muddy puddle of
Mm-hmm.
just again bitterness. And then I I learned along the way that like everything in life that happens, it's all neutral until we put a label on it. And through some mentorship, I was like, well, okay, I can label that day any way that I want to. And so I decided to label that day as my last bad day. And I was starting to give some acknowledgement that in a given day, there's a whole bunch of moments.
Yeah.
And some moments can be really happy and joyous, and some can be really, you feel you're frustrated and you're angry. It can be grief. It can be like all of it, all in the same day.
Right.
And so I decided, like, if I could go to bed each night and I had people in my life who I loved and they loved me back, then I couldn't call the whole day a bad one. It would be like unfair to those people. So I was like, all right, I'm going to draw a line in the sand. That's my last bad day. And I'm just going to acknowledge all the different moments in a day and get to the end of the day and not try to come up with like a concise label, because all of our days are pretty complex. So that's where the last bad day comes from. It's not about like all positivity, rainbows and rose-colored glasses. It's more about those around me, and making sure that we're really smart about the labels we use in our lives, because our labels definitely influence our perspective and how we show up for ourselves and each other.
They do. And if you know anything about me, you know I'm not big on labels or stereotypes. I mean, I grew up with them, I grew up around them, but I think it does everybody a big disservice. And
Yeah.
I think that's admirable. The fact that, like you said, it's not always, ice cream and roses or whatever you want to call it. It's not always rosy colored glasses, but the fact that, you can look at something and reframe it differently, so it's not as harsh. So, did it take you a while? Because I know it's pretty tough, especially when you're going through so much anger. I mean, they disrupted your family, took you away from your
Oh,
kids.
yeah.
I'm sure a financial burden. The fact, I mean, that
Oh,
it's very easy, I know, to go through. I won't say it's necessarily a pity pool, but when it's like why, kind of like the why me, and then get the anger. I mean, you have all those different phases to go through.
yeah. And I went through all those phases, I think, more than once. And it's the thing, and it's not linear too. Like there are times where I'd like bounce around to different emotions, and I've always sort of been a hopeful, optimistic guy. And
Hmm.
so what I was doing was like, well, okay, I need to show up for my family. I need to show up and be all brave, and so I would shove some of that, like all the gunk,
Right.
like in my backpack, try to hide it from view. And I learned over time that's not a healthy thing to do. That was sort of like my MO throughout my whole life, because I was never really taught like how to process emotions.
Hmm.
I had a little bit of an Irish temper growing up, and so my parents sort of shamed me out of it. So the anger I still felt, right, the things that would lead to my temper like being revealed, I just learned how to mask it and bottle it up uh, really well as I went through my teenage years, and that was sort of my coping mechanism. So yeah, so it took a while, and then depending on like what happened in my day, I could I could go back to like almost go back to start, like, and don't collect my $200.
Right.
So like if I had like pain, really sort of driven by pain, if I had like a pain or like a body part was starting to really like irritate me, I'd be like, oh, why'd this happen? Why'd that driver do that? Like, I found myself going back. Over time, the more I worked on my mindfulness practice and more time I spent with just, contemplation in general, I could come out of it faster. So I didn't stay in the mud for as long, and the mud wasn't as so intensely muddy, if that makes sense. So, and I wasn't trying to bypass what I was feeling. I was just like, I could like be with it, acknowledge it, say, hey, Kate, thanks for visiting. I'm just going to put you here over on the side. I might not let you go completely because that's hard to do, but I'm going to let you be. And then I can like move into something that I felt was a way I wanted to show up that was a little bit more in alignment to my values and overall. But yeah, it took a while, and it wasn't linear. It had its ups and downs and sideways and all that. And even current day, 25 years later, I still deal with things from that one moment. So, if you catch me on a day where I might be in a little bit more pain, it's like, oh God, like I don't necessarily go back to the accident date,
Right.
but I go forward like, oh my God, what's this pain? What is this? Is this gonna get worse? How's this gonna impact the rest of my life? And then all of a sudden I'm not present. And then I catch myself and I'm like, okay, come back. Like, come back, Michael, come back. So, but that's why we do the practice, right? So we do the practice to remember to come back. We all have these moments. So not everything is always peachy keen, for me or really anyone. That's, I think, the authentic way of living life, that it's messy, and we got to figure out how to navigate through it.
Oh yeah, it's always messy. So I can definitely relate to what you're saying because things that I've gone through in my life, I've always taken things like very personally and taken them on, and you have your own stuff to deal with. And so some things would hit me like really hard that I dealt with. Like my husband's death took me a really long time to get over. And then there's just other things. But when you start learning, and so you mentioned the word present. So I'm curious, have you read the book from Eckhart Tolle?
Yes, yeah. Listened to like a ton of his talks, and it was sort of my
The power
exploration
of
into.
now and a new earth. That is something that helped me is about being, because what's done is done. It's already happened. I mean, you can
Yeah.
acknowledge it, you can learn from it, but all of that, it's kind of like what you said, help even give me a different perspective. And that's kind of how I do, almost similar as like what you do, because when things happen, yeah, it's not always rosy. It's this, and you have those few seconds. But as you said, I don't stay in the mud, because we've learned different perceptions, different way to perceive things. And so, we can move through them quicker. So I'm curious, what are some of the things that help you to move through that? Because I'm sure other people that are watching that are stuck would love to know some practices they could do.
Yeah, so there's two things that really came out of my recovery, and I've used them ever since. So one was an acronym on the word grace. So I love the whole concept of grace, extending grace to ourselves and extending grace to each other. There's a flow to grace. I think there's some kindness and compassion with grace. So for me, through my recovery, and again, current day, the G stands for gratitude. So focusing in on the things that we still have and can do. We can hold like even the things that we've lost and the things that we have all together at the same time. The R is about reframing or reflecting. The A stands for awareness, acceptance, action, and then adjustment. So open up our awareness, accept what it is. It doesn't mean that we have to like what it is, but it's just like, hey, it's like this, and then we can take some action. And then sometimes when we take action, we miss the mark, so we need to adjust. We need to have some agility. The C is about community, like who's around you. And more research points to how important community and friend circles are in terms of living a healthy life. And then E is all around energy, the type of energy that we bring into the world or how we show up. And then, as we've talked about, the my whole method of mindfulness started with like pause, breathe, reflect. So what I was going through a pretty tough period of time in my recovery. I was still in the hospital, and I just like yeah, I was just struggling. I just wanted to get home. I was
Right.
like, I just want to get home to familiar smells and comfort of my own bed. And the insurance company actually wanted to kick me out of the hospital because I was costing them a fortune. So they're like get out. And truth be told, I left the hospital too soon. Like I wanted to leave, but I wasn't really truly independent. I
Mm.
was still dealing with a lot, but I wanted to get home. And I knew like okay, so I was like, well, what can I do to get home? I go, I got to get my mindset right. If I don't get my mindset right, then I'm probably not going to go home. And I knew the importance of mindset through my childhood of sports and just my life of sports. And so I was like, okay, so when we have a tough moment in sports, what do we do? And I said, well, the coach usually calls a timeout. We go over to the bench, we towel off, we catch our breath, and then coach draws up the next play when we go back on the court or the field. So it's like, okay, all right. So like, come back to your breath, right? And so that started the whole, hey, when I'm feeling something, hit pause, time out, take a few deep breaths, interrupt the pattern, like that habitual pattern of like this happens and then boom, I
Right.
react. And then with that space the breath gives us, then I have a chance to be reflective. I can draw up the next play, sort of like a timeout. So I can say, okay, like, all right, so it's like this, Michael. This is what's happening. Now, when you get back at it, how do you want to show up on the court or on the field or in life? And so that became pause, breathe, reflect. And it started off as a simple 5 minute box breathing pattern. And then I got into John Kabat-Zinn and mindfulness based stress reduction, and then Eckhart Tolle, and then uh, loving kindness meditations and body scans. And then I went on to do my work to be a qualified meditation teacher because it was so impactful for me to slow the recovery down so I could be really intentional about how I was showing up for all the different rehab sessions I had to go through.
Yeah, and that's important too. I've always found, mindset. Like I'm like with you, mindset is key. It kind of reminded me of when my fiance, they were looking at losing he was looking at losing his toe because of the
Wow.
type 2 diabetes. And I mean the doctors, everybody's like just looking so mortified. They're like, well, this is serious. You could lose a foot, you could lose a leg. I'm like, I watched Shark Week. Paul DeGelder lost an arm and a leg. I'm like, he can swim with sharks. This is a toe or a foot. We'll be fine.
Yes.
It could have been a lot worse. And
Yeah.
they were just like shocked, and they're like, well, that's a good attitude to have. And I'm like, he's got this. And he did great with it, recovered quickly, a lot quicker than what they ever thought it would, because we got the right mindset. We did a lot of the right things,
Yeah.
other things too. But again, it has to be with mindset. And it kind of shocked me because I'm like, okay, this is your doctor, and they're all coming in looking like you're on death's door with doom and gloom. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like who needs that energy in here? When he's looking at, going to surgery and losing a toe, and I'm like, so
Yeah. You get to, if you can get to acceptance, and I'm not saying, and you guys know it firsthand experience, it's not easy to get there, but it is a much, I think, healthier place to get to say, okay, hey, it's like this. Because the early parts of my recovery, as I would say, I was arguing with reality. I would spend all this time in my hospital bed
mhm.
because I couldn't get, like, I needed help just to get out of bed into my wheelchair. And I would be like, this is so unfair. This can't believe this happened. Why did this happen? Da, 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 da. Like, now I could spend hours This is before we had iPhones and we could scroll for hours. So I would just spend hours festering, like why'd this happen? Until I realized that, hey, like you're arguing with reality. The reality is it happened, Michael. Now, what do you want to do? And and it doesn't mean you can't be sad or mad about it. You can be. It's
Right.
just those emotions aren't going to drive the ship. It's like, okay, like, yeah, be pissed off. That's okay. Cool. But how do you want to go move forward? Because just sitting here in your hospital bed, getting all worked up, thinking you're going to change reality, that ain't going to change anything except probably change your health for the worse, not the better.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So before your accident, though, you spent a lot of years in high pressure leadership roles. So looking back now, would you say that there were signs that you were living disconnected from yourself? And if so, and how do you recognize those signs in others today?
Oh yeah, totally. I like it was like I had a problem orientation. So, like as many leaders today do, of like, what's the problem? What's the problem? And we don't spend enough time, I think, in corporate life or business life to say, hey, yeah, we got, maybe we have some business opportunities or problems to address, but hey, what are the good things that are happening right now? Like a little gratitude, because these wins that we experience, but we blow past, those are actually building blocks for future success. So I was like, okay, what's the problem I have to solve? I'm the leader. I will solve your problem. So it was sort of an ego-driven type of thing. I also had the whole chasing happiness arrival fallacy of like, I'll be happy when I get to this level. And I would get to that level. And then I soon realized the reason they pay you more is because the next level has more devils. It's not some type of bonus
No.
that they're going to pay you more. It's everything is more complex. The job just gets more demanding. And each and every time I thought, well, if I get to this title, I'll have made it, quote unquote. I'll be happy then, or I'll have this extra money. I can buy a nice car, and that will make me happy. And none of that ever made me happy. Maybe for like a day or two in today's world, you post something on LinkedIn, I got promoted. And then everyone gives you validation about like,
Yeah.
that's amazing, thumbs up, like it. And you're like, yes, look at how amazing I am. And then once the post moves past people's feed onto something else, it's like, oh, the job now is real. And it's stressful. So I was doing some of like that. I was comparison before we had social media to really drive comparison. And I didn't really spend a lot of the time in contemplation. I was like, I got too much to do, and I would have, and I would handle my stress in like maladaptive ways. Nothing that was ever like a problem, but I would have an extra beer or extra glass of wine some nights. I
Right.
would I would definitely emotionally eat. Sometimes I would like double down on my exercise just as another form of like beating myself up as opposed to nurturing myself. So I had ways that from afar could look like, well, no, he's just being healthy. Look at him go. He's going out there and doing his thing. But deep down they were maladaptive because I was showing up for them, not in a really healthy way. So yeah,
Right.
there were definitely things that I was doing that I was trying to like sort of escape life a bit. And then I see it today. There's definitely the whole chasing of happiness, the arrival fallacy. I think that this is even more intense nowadays. I see people having a better relationship with their phone than the people around them. I I see the whole and there's even more maladaptive ways of handling our stress. Now now that, like, say, gambling, like DraftKings and some of those brands, now people can gamble again. That's another way of
Yeah.
escaping. So there's a lot more out there for people, and I see my former life in a lot of the people that I coach, and maybe that's one of the reasons why we're connected.
Yeah, that's true too. And it probably during when you were going through it at that time, it didn't. Did you even recognize it as stress, or just you just figured you were doing fine? Because most people I know, when you talk to them, are like, "No, I'm fine. I'm doing this, and that." And until they like hit a wall, or really realize it.
Well, I thought there's, yeah, a couple. It's a great question, Laura, because there's part of me is like, well, this is what everyone's doing, and I need to do it this way because everyone else is doing it, and I don't want to fall behind. I need to keep up with the Joneses. So this is just a normal thing. I got to do it. I could tell I was stressed. I'd be like in my late 20s, or like the accident happened when I was 33. So late 20s, we're newly married, we're about to start a family, and I'm still breaking out with pimples, right? So to me, and that sort of might be a funny thing to say, but I'm like, I'm 31 years old and I'm still getting zits. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, this isn't normal. Like, and I knew through my teenage years, like when I would break out in any type of acne, it was generally like stress related. And I'm like, okay, my body's giving me a sign here. So I would just try to cover it up and treat it, or, you know, do the things that we do with pimples and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But so there were definitely some signs where I was like, oh, I'm feeling it. I wasn't necessarily like all that happy with how I was doing my job. But again, I was like, well, this is like, what else am I going to do? I have a family to provide for. Everyone else is doing it. This must be the thing. I was like, if this is the thing, it sucks. But I didn't have like, I couldn't see any other options. So I felt trapped in doing it the way I was doing it because I didn't want to fall behind.
Yeah. Are you a Gen Xer also?
I am a total Gen Xer.
That's what I thought. Was because you and I are both Gen Xers. So if anyone is a Gen X, then you knew you grew up in that frame where you were taught to go to school, go to college, get a degree, and go work for somebody. And
Yeah.
it was generally unheard of. You're supposed to go get a job and stay there. You didn't change. Of course, I'm not one of those. I've changed jobs many a times, but for the most part, that's the because from the traditionists and the baby boomers, that's how they were brought up, so that's kind of what and now things
Yeah.
are changing even more, so I mean there is that influence as well. Do you think it's because of that influence or the ego or the labels as to why high achievers are not doing something as simple as pausing, breathing, and reflecting, and even just taking a few minutes to do it? Why do they seem to be so hard for them to do?
I think like when you get down to the brass tacks, it's fear. I think there's still like a little bit of fear when it comes to like mindfulness. Like, is this going to dampen my edge and my drive? Am I going to get like, am I going to slow down? And the fear is if I slow down in a competitive company or a competitive industry, will I lose my status? So I get it's all gets tied into what's my status? What's the
Right.
pecking order? And I have status in the stuff that I own and I buy. I have status with the job title that I have, where my kids go to school, if they, grow up and go off to college. So there's so much to today's society that's like status is woven into so much of it. Even just, are you the type of person who wears Nikes or Adidas, right? It's like almost a different demographic. So I think there's a lot of like status woven in, and the whole concept of like pausing, breathing, reflecting, or doing any type of mindfulness type of practice. I think people are like, if I do that, I think I'll dull my edge and I'll dull my drive and I will fall behind. Or I'll be judged as someone who does that, almost
The
still a
the
little,
woo woo space. So you get the label of the
yeah,
woo
still
woo
like
space.
I don't, I think people have learned not to call it woo woo anymore, but I think there's still like some of it that still hangs on and it lingers,
Hmm.
right? It's like, well, I know it's not appropriate to call someone else's practice woo woo because that might be offensive to them.
Right.
So I'm not going to say it that way. I'm just not going to do it or come up with other reasons. But and you can point to great sports athletes who practice mindfulness, entertainers, leaders, but we don't have enough people. We don't have enough like high profile people really openly talking about their
Hmm.
practice. I think we just need more and more of that to make it a little bit more commonplace. And there's also, mindfulness is a big umbrella, and certainly there's some stuff that are more mainstream. I'm trying to reach the business professional, and my practice is a whole bunch of like little shorter practices.
Right.
And what I share with people is like, I get it. You don't have 10 minutes in the morning to meditate. Cool. You're like trying to get the kids ready for school. You got emails to crank out. You got a long commute, this, that, and everything else. But I bet during the course of the day, you have 5 times where you can take 2 minutes to hit pause, take a few deep breaths, and just have a moment of reflection. And if you do 2 minutes times five, there's your 10 minutes in the day. And I'll take that. That's a great start. And so that can be an entry point for a lot of people. But I still think people think, well, I don't know. I know intellectually it's good. I just don't make time for it yet. And I think it might make me too soft. There's just that hesitation in their
Yeah.
voice. And we just got to get to a point where people realize it actually sharpens one's focus and attention. And it actually helps people perform better and show up for life with, more engagement and more awareness.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I told people. I said it's like banging your head on a wall, or it's like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. I mean, even when I went back to school, you sit there and it's like, oh my God, I got to get this done. And I sat there. But if I just got up and I just walked away and I went outside, did something else, take those deep breaths or whatever, it's like a light bulb clicks on, and it's like, why did I make that so hard? Because I get back to the computer and choop, knocked it out and I'm done. When I'm like, okay, I just lost hours because I kept insisting that I had to get this done. But really, it's kind of like you have to slow down to go forward faster, right?
Yeah. And well, that's, there's, I think it's either the Navy SEALs or the Marine Corps that says slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Right? And so we've heard this, but so many people are like they want to be the quickest, do everything super fast. We're rushing here and we're rushing there, and I'm like, you're rushing to a job that you really don't like, and then once it's over, you're rushing to the next thing, and you're rushing out of this meeting to the next meeting. It's like we could all take a nice long pause and be like, okay, what are we doing? Like we're just going from one thing to the next without really experiencing it or living it. And I think if we had this takes a bit of courage. If we had the courage maybe to do fewer things, not go from doing 100 things to 2 things, although
Right.
for some people that might be the ticket. But if we did 100 things in the past and now we're doing like 67 things, that might be a nice reduction, and now we can do those better. And take it at the pace that the task deserves, because ultimately in life something will happen. Like for 90% of us, we'll go through some type of life trauma. For me, it was my accident, but it could be losing a loved one, as it happened with you. It could be an illness. It could be an accident. It could a whole
Host of
bunch
things.
of different things.
Yeah.
Life will happen, and so when those life moments come, we want to make sure that we have our full capacity to meet those moments. So in some moments during the course of the day, like require you to rush. Like if you had an emergency, then you need the energy to make that to rush to something, like to make it on time. But not everything deserves to be rushed through. And I think we've gotten that a little a little confused in our heads because we believe that if we just do more, then we're going to be worth more, as opposed to just starting with like, you're worthy just as you are. And doing more isn't going to make you more worthy. It's just going to make you super busy and probably burnt out over the long haul. So,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. And it's true because we live in a culture that celebrates hustle and constant productivity. So, I mean, how would you say your definition of success has changed since your accident? And what do you think most people get wrong about achievement?
So I think most people, the achievement piece of it, I think what people get wrong about it is it's going to lead to some level of fulfillment and happiness, but it's fleeting. They'll feel it for a bit, and then we'll get to it. And so much of success is comparison based. Like, how am I doing against like my neighbor or my colleague? And so I fell in that camp. Like, that's get to the highest rung of the ladder that you can, and that's success. And you can
Right.
tell your parents, look how successful your son is, right? And as a way to, you know, get the love that you think they owe you, right? So it's like that whole thing from our childhood. It's like if I was only more successful, my parents would have loved me more, right? And
Hmm.
so I found myself in that that loop. For me, and this sort of gets to purpose. I think we all land on this planet with a purpose of connecting with other people and making life better for all of us. Like, wake up every day and try to show up in a way that makes life better. However you might want to decide that, and not just for you, but for us. And I think in the last 20, 30 years, through the self-help industry, we've gotten too focused on me. Like, how can I get better? How can I live my best life? Well, if living your best life makes life miserable for everyone else around you, then that probably isn't the definition of success. So, how can you show up and create a ripple effect that makes life better for, yes, you, but those around you? And uh, it leads to, genuine happiness and joy and a bit of like equanimity or tranquility, as far as like, or being content, which is not the same, as as like, not, you can still have drive and ambition, but like I'm content with what I have.
Right.
And I think, to me, that's the definition of success now, as far as like how many people can I hopefully impact in a positive way. I'll never be able to count it, so I don't have a wearable to measure it. But I want to show up and leave the world better than when I came into it. And if I can do that in whatever form or fashion, then I think I've lived a meaningful life. And that's how I define it now. And it's not based on how many followers I have on whatever platform is out
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
So I'm curious then. So is that what got you to your recent project of Why We Met?
Yeah. So,
It's pretty incredible. So go ahead and tell people what, I mean, you can tell people about basically how we met and what you're working on now.
yeah. So I have a podcast called Whole Again, where I use the Japanese art form of kintsugi, which, when pottery breaks, the artist puts it back together, and people can see where the glue is shaped because they highlight the glue with gold, and so that it's called the golden repair. And those gold lines are symbols of our strength and resilience. So, as someone who doesn't have any tattoos but has plenty of scars, it's one way for me to see the kintsugi that's within me and all my scars, and looking at my scars as symbols of strength, not as, oh, meant you're broken, right? Because
Right.
in the beginning, looked at all my blemishes and scars. And it's like, oh my God, I'm a broken mess. And so the art form of kintsugi really helped me understand that we're all in the process of stepping into the person that we're becoming and hopefully lead a meaningful life. And so one of the things that I always had a goal of, going back to 1976 in the bicentennial, I learned at a young age that there was some bike route, a map, if you will, that could take cyclists across the country. And I thought, oh wow, that is so cool. One day I'm going to do that. And the one day never came. And then I had my accident. And then everyone told me, like, you're probably never going to ride your bike again and you're going to walk with challenge. So I thought the dream was over. But I held on to it loosely. Over the years, people thought I was crazy every time I brought it up. I was like, you know what? You never know. And in 2022, we finally got to it. My wife drove our rented RV, and we had our two co-pilots, our two dogs, Hope and Jester, with us. And I rode my bike across the country. And my wife always had a dream of RVing across the country. So we had these two
Two for
childhood
one.
dreams, yeah, coming together. And there were so many great things about the trip, but a great element of the trip were all the conversations I had with complete strangers. Like I was going through states I had never been to and probably would never visit because we went through, the route takes you really through rural America. Like the biggest city I hit was Pittsburgh, PA, and that was near the end of the trip. Maybe Eugene, Oregon, that has a decent size. And then we finished up in Washington, D.C., so that was the biggest one, but we didn't really spend much time there. So we're going through all these wonderful small towns, and we'd meet up with people and chat. And, and they had their own lived experiences compared to me, and we found a way to like find common ground and hit it off and share some laughs and some appreciation for like what we all had together. And so the trip like really definitely left a positive mark on me. It was life changing. And so as we come into America's 250th, I was like, you know what? I want to try to recreate it now that I have this thing called a podcast. And I want to talk to 102 people, two from each state and the District of Columbia, on their reflections of America as America turns 250. And it's not a debate show, as you know. It's just more about having a conversation about, what's working and what could work better and what our wish would be for each other. And so I was going through LinkedIn and I was doing some searches and I was like, okay, I want to talk to a couple of people in Missouri. And the reality is I don't know a lot of people who live in Missouri. So
You know one now.
yeah. And so then although when I rode across the country, I rode through the Katy Trail in Missouri and met some wonderful people in Jefferson City and really everywhere. And so, so I did a search and I put in mindfulness, I was like Missouri, first connection, second connections, and I put in mindfulness, and you popped up, and I was like, oh, Laura Cross. I was like, I went to college with a Laura Cross, and I was like, this. I don't think it's the same Laura Cross, but like, then I clicked on your profile, and then I saw your photo with your NASCAR stock car driving outfit and the helmet. I'm like, all right, this looks like a really interesting person. Like she's a a military vet. She like races stock cars. She's doing this thing called Mindful Mondays, and it was so many cool things all coming together. And I'm like, I need to talk to Laura. And so I reached out like a cold email through LinkedIn, and you were kind enough to respond. And a few days ago, we recorded our conversation, and it will be out hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So it was like one of those like algorithms working on the universe's benefit of bringing us together, and I'm so glad it did.
Well, I'm so glad it did too, and I'm glad you saw the profile that way because I have other people that are just the people that are more transactional. They're like, okay, I don't get it. What do you do? Because it's like
Yeah,
You know,
no, oh, then I saw the
I haven't
dolphin
like,
one,
totally fixed that yet, but that's
yeah,
okay.
like the whole like swimming with the dolphins. I'm like, I mean, this is a very interesting woman. Like she swims with the dolphins, she races
Cars.
cars, and I grew up like going to the junior leagues of NASCAR and dirt track racing and stuff like that. So like I have part of my DNA is like NASCAR and that kind of like I'm more of a NASCAR fan than like an F1 fan. So I was like, oh, yeah, I think she's got a lot of cool things going on, and so yeah, I was like, I'm gonna reach out to her because I go
Well,
through a whole bunch of different people's profiles, and I'm like, okay, like what's interesting about this person? Do I, would it be cool to have a conversation with them? And that's how I determine who to reach out to and who I might not reach out to.
yeah. Well, I'm grateful that you did, and I enjoyed being on that, and it was fun to share the tidbits and stuff that we were sharing together, and having you on the show, and you sharing the journey. Because I love relationships. I love meeting different people like that. So I'm glad you saw it that way. We have about 4 minutes left.
Yeah,
So, because I know you and I could probably go, you and I
yeah,
could
we could
probably
go
go
on
on
for
for a really
hours.
long
Yeah.
time. So real quick, how many states do you have covered so far? Do you know?
So I have already recorded and released. I have, I think, 37, 38. So I have like 12 more states where I need to get at least one person. Once I go through, because the goal is two people from each state. So I'm really trying to set it up with like, let me get one person from each state first, and then I'll move on to the second person from each state. But there are definitely some states where like I don't have any connections, so I'm doing cold outreach to like people in Alaska and North Dakota and South Dakota.
Oh,
And so if anyone is out
I know
there,
people in North Dakota and South Dakota.
yeah, so
You let me
that
know
would
what
like to,
states you're stuck in.
yeah, would like to join me,
Yeah.
it's please reach out. I'd love to have people on just to share their perspective, and it's yeah, it's good fun, and I believe that the only way we actually come together, because the series is called the Perfectly Imperfect Union, so we're going to come together imperfectly, and the only way we're going to do that is through conversation. There isn't going to be a magic moment. There's no leader that's going to come and save us. No influencer is going to come and save us. It's up to all of us to have conversations and look beyond the labels that we've placed on each other and see the humanity in one another and say, like with anyone, I can find something we can agree on. And it might just be one thing. Like we both love mint chocolate chip ice cream, and we're gonna play that as long as we can play that, and that's the start. And if we have a long enough conversation about that, maybe there's something else that we agree on, and we can appreciate each other a little bit more. And my hope is that the series is a good role modeling exercise, so we do this more often, and so we can find a way to stop our divisiveness and find a way to come together.
Yeah. Well, I think it's fantastic what you've put together, and what you've done, what you've overcome is incredible. So,
No, thank you, Laura. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
not a problem. Yeah, I'm really glad we met, and I'm looking forward to staying connected. So, yeah, if any of you are struggling, definitely download his app. As you saw in the ad, it is free. So on the Google Play Store, the Apple, make sure you download his app for pause, breathe, and reflect. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pause,
All
breathe, and
three, and
reflect.
you'll see it. And it's, yeah, totally free. There's no like hidden membership costs. It's all free, all there for people. And yeah, I hope people take advantage of it. And I just want to give you credit, Laura, before we go. Like the whole template here of Mindful Mondays with the blue and the orange, and we just happen to be both like on brand with my
It is true. Yeah, I wasn't even looking
with,
at that, but you're right. Yeah.
which we, for everyone listening and watching, we didn't plan it this way. We just, this is how it happened. So I think we should give ourselves credit for being in sync with the brand colors today. So bravo.
Thank you. And thanks for being with us today, Michael. Everybody, thanks again for watching. I hope you've got some valuable insights from this. I don't know how you couldn't have, but got valuable insights from this talk. Reach out to Michael, especially if you're in one of those states that he's looking for, and be a part of his movement. It's a wonderful thing that you're doing, I think, with celebrating the 250 years of America. But we will catch everybody next time. So have a great day and great week. We'll see you next Monday.